My wife and I are both from London, but every time we go to the city centre, we do this voice where we're like, "Here we are, London, beautiful London.
Swinging London!
It's a sea that never sleeps. We've made it, my love.
The big smoke.
They got houses big as mountains here."
Hey, fun fans, it's We Enjoy, and we are the Mattitude Eric. I'm Matt Fowler. Say hello, Eric Goldman.
Hello, everybody.
We are both back from our respective vacations. Eric, for his anniversary trip to Las Vegas. You know what they say about Las Vegas? What happens in Vegas, you're going to tell me on the podcast because I'm going to ask you about your trip.
Sure.
More like lost wages, more like whole paycheck. And we are also ending our Wolf run officially. It's been a long one. What is it? How many movies was this? Six, seven?
Maybe six.
I don't know. But we're ending it with actually, it is funny how we're bookending this one because we are ending it with 2010's The Wolfman, a remake of the first movie we did on this run, which was the original Universal film, The Wolfman. So we're going to do that, wrap it up, and then we've got something fun for you guys for the next 4 weeks before we get into our next franchise. And so Eric, how was your trip to the city of Sin, to Sin City?
It was really fun. Aerosmith was great. I mean,
I didn't even bring that up, but you went and saw Aerosmith.
Yeah, saw Aerosmith for the first time, who were doing a residency there. And it's funny because it was like a relatively small venue, especially for Aerosmith. And I was like, oh, well, how are they making a fortune? I mean, besides the fact that, we were sitting, near the back on, still like $200 tickets, but it's still like not that many seats. Well, here's the big thing is the people that were paying the big money people are paying to sit on stage. Like literally there was like two sections on each side of the stage where you're like on stage.
Oh man. So like when he sings, when Steven Tyler's like ragdoll and he hand the mic to them and they go, wow, but now
yeah, pretty much. And there was still like, a like pit area and all that. But obviously I'm like, oh, that must be like a lot of money for those people. But it was a freaking great show. And it is one of those things where it's like, these guys are in their 70s. And they're dyeing their hair, most of them. But Jesus, I was like, Steven Tyler's 74, and he's like standing on top of the piano during Dream On, and then he leaps off it, and I'm part impressed and part going, Jesus, old man.
But I also think it's sort of weird. So yeah, 70 in your 70s is a delicate, fragile time to be a rock and roller. It's doable, as we've seen with the Rolling Stones and so on, but like that's why I think a residency suits them, right? Because like it's the wear and tear of the road, man.
No, there's no road with the residency.
But like, we're just in our 40s, and all of us, we're like, oh, these long car rides, and this plane rides my back, and like it hurts, and so.
Also, they've lived such hard lives, like they've had like addictions and all this stuff.
So in rocker years, they're like 95, honestly.
Right. But it was a great show. It's like actually, I was going to say as you might expect, but it wasn't quite what I expected. Which is, I thought, well, at this point, it's going to be a greatest hit show, which I guess it was like 85%. But they actually did mix in some like, deep cut early stuff.
Well, maybe they did covers too. They don't have a new album coming out, do they?
No,
it's not like that. Yeah. So, and also
there was like 3 or 4 songs I didn't recognize. And I was like, okay, which I thought was nice. Even though, of course, they did like most of the things you'd expect them to do. No, Janie's Got a Gun.
Well, the people on stage were there because they didn't want to miss a thing. You know what I'm saying? Oh, no, Janie's got a gun. No,
Janie's Got a Gun. And only one of the Alicia Silverstone trilogy. They only did Crying.
But not crazy. Okay, I was gonna say. Well, a lot of fans don't know this, Eric, but Crying, Crazy, and Amazing.
Yeah,
they're all the same song.
Oh, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, they very much are the same song. And Crying's the best one, and it was the first one of that trilogy. And they showed clips from the video while that song was on, so we got to see Alicia and Stephen Dorff on screen, and the whole thing. I also wondered, Matt, because I'd never gone to a residency, like, is there an opening act? No. And the way that Aerosmith does it is this like the show was at 7 or 8 o'clock? 8 o'clock. But what they did was at 8 o'clock or 8:10, actually, a video began that was kind of like a look back at their career with a countdown clock saying 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was showing like not just interviews and early clips of them, but also like here they are on The Simpsons and here they are in Wayne's World 2.
I was going to say,
you know?
the headliners of Wayne Stock, Aerosmith.
Right. So mix it all up. But that was really cool. That was obviously the main event of while we were there. And the other cool thing we did that I don't know if you've been to, Matt, but if you haven't, you should go to, is the Neon Museum. Have you ever been to that?
No. Is that like one of those interactive things, or it's just like a...
Nope. It's a what do they call it? Not a boneyard. Which it's where they have all of these old giant neon signs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
From mostly places that are gone. In some cases, like Caesar's Palace is still there. It says just old signage, but most of it's like they have the giant guitar from the Hard Rock Hotel, which no longer exists in Vegas. And they had a sign. The one that was a big nostalgia for me was Fitzgerald's, which was a crappy, downtown hotel that I stayed at with Jonah Krakow and two other friends from high school. My first time I ever went to Vegas. So it's just really, we went during the day. I want to go back at night because everything was lit up and you could still see that it was lit up, but obviously it must look awesome because it's outdoors. You're just walking through this like junkyard, but not a junkyard because it's just this like where they have all this crazy old neon signs on display, some of which are massive.
When you said it was the
really
Neon Museum, I thought it was something like Meow Wolf, like one of those interactive like art display things. Have you been to any of those?
No.
Because I didn't go to a Meow Wolf, but I went to whatever the interactive thing was down my birthday trip to Houston in August. We went to like one of those things. We walk through and it's crazy and it's like a lot of art displays and interactive. It's like a children's museum for adults.
Okay.
But yeah, that sounds cool with all the dead signs.
Yeah, that was really cool. So this were kind of like our two highlights, and then we ate a couple. Really, I have to on Twitter. I need to directly give some thanks to people because I did a what's good in Vegas to eat at and got a lot of great answers. Some of which weren't convenient, some of which looked very expensive. Like that's what you plan your trip around, expensive. And I'll do some other time if I have the money and planning for that. But a couple we were able to do. One was from someone I didn't know, and one was from someone I'm a friend with, but they were both great. And so found some new great food places.
I see you didn't take my suggestion to return to the modern vegan.
I did not return.
So because I was sure that you weren't receptive to my suggestions, I wasn't going to recommend another great place if you are a vegan and going to Vegas, which is Chef Kenny's Asian vegan restaurant. Not the most creatively named place, but if you are a huge Chinese food fan, but also vegan, I recommend that place too.
Well, the problem I have is that I love Chinese food. My wife hates Chinese food. So
I know that was the thing. And that's why it's like when you and I remember being married when if my wife was on a business trip, I was like, motherfucking Chinese food time. And like, just make myself sick.
No, I absolutely am like that. But tell me about your trip, Matt.
I can't believe I've been to Europe twice in this year. That's crazy.
Dude, I know.
Jet setter. Just call me European Matt Fowler. I didn't even start going to Europe until 2018 when I went to Scotland. Yeah. So went to Portugal, and for now both of these times, we were a part of a tour group called Go Ahead Tours, which is there are hundreds of tour companies, thousands. I even like that. This was just one, and so because Germany was such a great experience, we did it again with Portugal, and this was a shorter trip than the Germany trip. 7 days. Started in Porto, went all down to the coast and back up into Lisbon. Saw the Chapel of Bones, which I talked to you about before I'd even been there, and it's really fun. Went to Sintra, saw the palace, and a lot of cool things. But then from there, Sans tour director or guide flew to Germany, to Cologne, to see The Cure, and also happenstantially just that week began the official Christmas markets. I don't know if you know about the Christmas market scene in Germany.
I know about the Christmas markets because my aforementioned wife did a trip with her mom to do the Christmas markets.
Yeah.
They
honestly, like,
they did Belgium.
There are specific Christmas market tours you
Mhm.
can go on for sure. So only went to the Cologne Christmas markets, but yeah, Germany is ground zero for Christmas. And so they take their Christmas markets very seriously. So it was really a wonderful spectacle to see. And, there are places throughout the North America and the United States here where they celebrate Christmas, and there are Christmas theme parks now and again. But the only thing I can sort of liken it to as an American experience is possibly a state fair, but it's all Christmas.
Right.
And the major cities will actually have several different Christmas markets throughout. So in Cologne, there was more than one Christmas market. There was the one at the cathedral, there was one in Old Town, there was one over here, one over there. Anyway, but and each one of them has their own like individualized mug, so people collect these mugs, and you can get your drinks out of them. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, and The Cure is amazing. As we talk about seeing aging,
we both saw old bands.
So it's funny because Robert Smith and Morrissey get brought up in the same breath because there's been sort of like ever since the 80s a Cold War between them, a war of words here and there in interviews. There's sort of a rivalry. They don't like each other. They both are, have a very distinct look and write very distinct music, and are often seen as sad and moody and so on, and glum and goth and so on. Maybe not goth for Morrissey, but the thing is that they're both the same age, I believe, like 63, 64. Mm-hmm. Robert Smith, though, in concert, is the happiest, most lovable, kissable, huggable, like Care Bear you'll ever like. Just so grateful, cries when he sings, and he just loves everyone, and he like walks around the stage and greets everyone, and like so happy, and plays like 2.5 hour half-hour long shows.
Right.
And this was a European tour where they had like 40 dates, and he's putting in like 2.5 hours every concert. And so it's pretty amazing. And this is on the heels of, and I love Morrissey, and who's extremely problematic to say the least as far as his politics go. But like on the heels of Morrissey doing a US tour right now, where in I believe it was the second date, he left the stage after 30 minutes because he was cold.
At the Greek here in LA.
He was playing at the Greek in LA, and at 30 minutes in, it was cold. And he can't. I think he postponed it. Everyone can go back and see him when it's warmer, I suppose. But but then he did cancel 2 Midwestern dates recently, like last week too. So I'm just happy I got to see him at the Cruel World Fest in May, where he showed up and headlined both nights, but I only saw one night. Anyway, that was the only time I'd actually seen him after trying for years.
Oh yeah, he makes it a challenge.
It is. It's sort of like we don't know what's going to happen when how it's going to turn out.
I mean, that night was like the funniest / worst that he showed up.
Yeah, he was there and he left the stage, and then like. I think it was Belinda Carlisle who played in Austin. So for those who don't know or who haven't seen Get Him to the Greek is an outdoor venue. So it was cold even for LA. I think
it was a cold night in LA, which is all relative.
Or something on stage. And if he's protecting his health, fine. His voice, I get it. He could have put on a sweater and a scarf. But anyway, Belinda Carlisle, I think a few days later, was playing at an outdoor venue in Austin, and like tweeted out like, even though it was freezing out, I loved playing the show or something. It felt like a subtweet. Even though I don't think I don't consider Belinda Carlisle and Morrissey running in the same like even like musical Twitter circles. But anyway, they are of the 80s, massive I understand. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, the Cure were absolutely incredible, and it was one of those instances, and I know there's a lot of personal minutia up top here as far as our trips and so on, but like those people who like music and like going to concerts will understand this, where it's like sometime a band hits the road and they play the same set. Sometimes they'll swap out a song or two, but mostly it's the same set. Then there are people like, last time I saw Nine Inch Nails, Eric, aside from 3 songs, which were always on the show, he changed the set every night.
Oh,
so
okay.
You could he played 2 days here in Dallas. You could go to both nights and see a different show.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Cure was doing a thing where they had almost a similar set list every night, but a lot of songs were mixed around, and they did 2 encores every night. And the first encore changed every night, and it alternated. And I was happy that I got the version of 3 songs off of my favorite album, so if I had gone the show before or after, I wouldn't have gotten that. So
you would have heard your least favorite album.
I was like, I would have gotten the album I fucking hated. I was like, oh, it was called The Cure's garbage album. Anyway, those were our trips, and that was our life, and this is our podcast. And let's get into actually some entertainment news here, because stuff's been piling up. Actually, before we get into the news you've written down here, let's just touch on a write-in really quickly, which is that Brando has written in to our Gmail, and you can write in at weenjoypodcast at gmail.com. Hey guys, first time, long time, writing to you from Indiana. I wanted to hear Eric's take on Bob fucking Iger returning to Disney. And this is something that happened during our time away, and so what is your take on this, Eric?
I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
It is crazy. We talked about the James Gunn taking over DC Studios. This is crazy just because, like, Iger obviously having been there for so long, and it was such a big deal that he was finally leaving, because after he'd extended more, on and on, and he'd stayed on longer than he intended to, as they opened Shanghai and then all this different stuff. And then Disney Plus, he stayed on for that, and then he left finally. And the fact that, he'd officially, Chapek had taken over as CEO, was it February or March 2020, but Iger stayed on technically till the end of 2020 in a diminished role. That was like part of the way they were doing it. But the fact that now, like a year later, he's back, it's pretty, it's just kind of insane that's the way it's happened. There's been so much fan revolt against Chapek. Now I say that
because of the parks and because of the animation.
Right. And I realize this is on a certain level of fan. I mean, a lot of people don't know who he is.
Right.
But people who are, Disney Twitter, Disney online.
A lot of people don't know who Bob Iger is. It doesn't
Right, exactly. So. These people are meaningless to a lot of people. But to those who follow this stuff, Chapek had a very bad reputation that had only gotten worse. And people felt like he was doing a lot of blunders. And some of them were very notable. Like, it got brought up a lot with the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit, the fact that he kind of publicly like talked shit about her instead, and in a way that like everyone's like, well, Iger never would have done that. Iger was great with talent and would have like not made this into like a pissing contest publicly. And then, everything with the Florida and the Don't Say Gay bill, and the fact that he was like, didn't take any stance at all.
Yeah, he remained neutral, frustratingly silent about that. Yeah.
While Iger was tweeting out like, this is terrible and all. And so, there was a lot of things happening, but at the end of the day, of course, it all comes down to money and Disney not being happy. It sounds like the board not being happy with decisions he was making and how they were affecting them. So it sounds like it happened super, super quick. But the craziest thing I read, Matt, was that because this news broke on a Sunday night, and it broke like an hour before the live Elton John concert on Disney Plus from Dodger Stadium. And I read one report that Chapek was supposed to introduce Elton John at that. And then
God.
Yeah.
He would have gotten booed. He would have gotten booed out of the arena.
He got booed a little bit at D23.
Yeah. So, all right. Who would you rather go see Aerosmith with? Chapek or Zaslav?
What a strange thing. I guess Chapek, because at least he'd been at Disney for years and we can talk about Disney stories, because Zaslav comes from Discovery and doesn't have any background with Warner Brothers, which is part of the problem. Anyway, the fact that they say this is like it's 2 years, he's back for 2 years to kind of right the ship and find another successor that hopefully doesn't shit the bed. And then people are like, he'll never leave. Like,
I know. Like, yeah. By the way, I still love the fact that when there's an exceedingly loud noise, it basically goes silent on the podcast. Remember when you try to open your Coke can?
Oh, yeah.
Most often, though, it's your loud laugh. So when you started laughing at the Aerosmith thing just now, it was silent. So to our listeners, it sounds like I make a weird joke or question, and it's just fucking crickets afterwards. And really, it's like your silent scream laugh.
Humor, Matt? Stop with your humor.
All right.
Anyway, so that's my reaction to Iger is what the fuck, this is crazy. Better than, I'm happy, I'm happy he's back in, because I do like him more than Chapek, and I think he made better decisions, but we'll see how it all pans out in 2 years, I guess.
I've reminded Eric before this podcast that I am in a new place right now, just setting up still with new internet. So my fingers remain crossed that this is better in the long run for everyone involved. So Eric, I don't know this news. The Chapek news I knew, even though I was overseas when it happened, but it was crazier than the Chapel of Bones, Eric, that I was in when I learned it. What is Ang Lee makes Bruce Lee biopic starring Mason Lee? Like, I understand the sentence, I get that, but elaborate on that.
No, it's Bruce Lee reaching that point where we're getting a second major motion picture about
after
his life.
Dragon,
which was like a big Universal movie, but not many people thought like a great movie.
Also starring a Lee. So
also starring an unrelated
Lee. These were all
Lee.
unrelated Lees.
Right. Well, but that's not quite true here. There is some relation here, which is Mason Lee, who's going to star as Bruce Lee in Ang Lee's movie,
right?
Is Ang Lee's son.
Oh, that's stupid. I'm talking about relation to Bruce Lee. I don't care about nepotism.
I'm just saying that it is funny that there is this thing. And I was looking at Mason Lee's credits, and he's got a lot of credits, but I think the only American film he's been in is Hangover Part 2, which is funny to me. But yeah, Ang Lee's fascinating because obviously extremely talented guy. You don't think of him first and foremost as action, but then of course he did Crouching Tiger and he did Hulk. Amongst doing like the Ice Storm and Brokeback Mountain.
The thing is like, honestly, Crouching Tiger you can make an argument for, sure, but was Hulk a good action movie?
Strange esoteric movie, but anyway, he's doing this. It's funny to read because Lee but there you go, another Bruce Lee biopic.
Mason Lee was in Lucy too.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, the Scarlett Johansson movie.
I was a liar about that being his only.
Chapek's favorite actress. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we have some unfortunate passings in the past week and a half or so. Let's start with Jason David Frank, Eric, because you are a much bigger Power Rangers fan than I'll ever be, because that sort of missed me. But I did go with you to see the movie. So
you did. Also, we should mention, because we pre-recorded the last episode so early, he'd already passed away by the time it went up. I realized, so
before that episode, for sure. So Jason David Frank passed away. I believe it was by his own hand, correct?
Yeah. It's just one of those, obviously super sad things, because I watched Power Rangers because I was too old to watch it like a little kid, entranced. I watched it sort of ironically because
you didn't contribute to it basically selling $1 billion in toys or
no. I thought it was just goofy and amusing, and my stoner friend Marcus was all about it. And
Marcus sounds like a stoner friend.
But of course I knew who he was, and I knew he was he was like the Wolverine of Power Rangers. Like, he was the cool guy, and he wasn't supposed to be a part of the show regularly, but they kept bringing him back because the fans loved him so much. And, I say back then, but then he kept coming back to the franchise through the years. They'd bring him back all the time because he could kind of be this legacy character and performer that would get such a big boost to be bring him back, bring Tommy back. And huge on the convention scene. And, there's a lot of very sad and emotional posts from his co-stars, who I was thinking about how in the year 2022 are so much more in touch than they might be because of the convention circuit. It's people might drift apart, but in this day and age, when it's you're doing conventions all the time, it's they see each other, they know each other. Super sad and super emotional. But I also felt really bad because people pointed out, especially for people who were kids in the time when this aired, it's right on the heels of Kevin Conroy. It's these two people who were such huge heroes to kids of that era, also both in Fox Kids. I know they kind of aired together very much. So just kind of a little bit of an eerie thing with him on the heels of that. But just very sad. And again, one of those things where it's you don't know what's going on in people's lives, because he seemed such a very sort of positive gung-ho guy, and he was a real life martial artist and did like mixed martial arts and stuff. But you don't know what people are going through, so yeah, just very sad. But especially it's just like really you saw that people were like, oh my god, I grew up, he was our hero. And I don't know if you saw like Xavier Woods and Kofi, how they, and I think this was from the past, or they put a picture of it and there maybe they wore it again, but how they'd worn like White Ranger and Green Ranger like inspired gear.
Yeah.
And and Xavier Woods is not the only one. Johnny Gargano too, like, or like mention like Power Rangers, and Tommy Oliver is like just a huge touchstone, like sort of hero for people growing up. So very sad, but certainly very beloved.
Someone else who passed, who Eric and I did catch sort of in a very seminal movie moment, was Clarence Gilliard, known to us very famously for playing Theo, the cyber hacker, part of Hans Gruber's crew in Die Hard, the only the one of two terrorists in that movie, actually non-terrorists, just thieves, armed thieves, to survive Die Hard. And very quotable from that movie as well, a very memorable, fun performance, but very successful television actor.
Yeah.
The point where he starred in, it was a major recurring character on Matlock, and then went on to do almost 200 episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger. So Clarence Gilliard passed away as well. And I know you were lamenting on Twitter that we never got the Theo's Revenge movie version of Die Hard.
Yes.
So we'll just have to settle for the extended Die Hard battery commercial where he reappeared as Theo.
I will say, at least we did get that.
At least we did. Someone was paying attention. Someone was paying attention. Is like, everyone's gonna know who Theo is, and we're gonna put him very, very quickly in. The fact that the story is, if we do accept it as canon, hell, I accept the Die Hard battery commercial as canon way more than the final Die Hard movie.
Yeah,
which is to say that Theo sat dormant for decades and then was launching this like actual revenge on John McClane. Like
I was all for it. He was so good in Die Hard, and I mean, look, Die Hard is a perfect movie, and everyone in it is great. But Theo was one of those many elements that just like clicked and was so good. And I mentioned on Twitter, it's like Hans on his own, excellent standout villain. But one of the many, many things that make that movie a stand-up movie is that they gave so much attention to the crew, and then we got to know so many of them, and they weren't just like generic like guys helping Hans. And Theo...
it's like, the great part of that movie, a side element there is you want Hans to succeed.
Yeah,
so there's the whole point.
You want John to succeed too, but
so it's one of those things where it's like, and to a different degree, if you are a Hudson Hawk, you can hear our discussion about Andor over on Patreon. Which is to say, like, that movie, that series, you also follow the horrible fascist Empire spy division. You know what I mean? Like, and you get invested in their, politics and their office, hierarchy and stuff like that with a particular character. And you want her to succeed on a certain level, even though it would mean the end of Andor and all the other people we care about. So that's where good writing comes in. And so it's like when Hans is playing around with like Theo and you really want him to get through these layers of the vault, right? Like and get to the cache. And there's a reason why that music plays when the final lock gives.
Triumph.
Right? And like, it's this amazing moment where you can hear Beethoven, and which became the theme of that movie and the franchise going forward too. Like it was using commercials and all that stuff. So R.I.P. Clarence Gilliard. And then just today, Christine McVie. I'm not the biggest Fleetwood Mac fan in the world. Are you, Eric?
I'm a pretty big Fleetwood Mac fan. I
am not really a Fleetwood Mac fan. But I understand like her musical legacy and the importance of again, this very particular lineup of the group that was like huge for probably 5 albums. Yeah, it's such interesting because Fleetwood Mac existed for many albums until like 75 or 6 when the first Fleetwood Mac album with this the Buckingham Knicks
Yes.
lineup came in.
It's so weird because they existed for so many years before that, but it's unlike most bands where it's like the original lineup. It's like, nope, it's like the third lineup.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed Faith No More with Chuck Mosley, but man, it wasn't until Mike Patton came in. So yeah.
Right. But Christine Mickey, yes, has a big Fleetwood Mac fan. Yeah, this was one of those ones that kind of hit me harder than I thought it was going to hit me. Because I'm big fan of them, and I think she's great, and she has a couple of songs that were like some of my favorites. And also, I think a lot of people, her dying, it's like one of those things like when George Harrison died, and it's kind of like the quiet one who you knew was really talented and didn't get the attention that the others did, even though she like wrote "Don't Stop." Like
even though she and her husband were going through a breakup on Rumors too, they all were. So
yeah. Well, they all were, yeah. They one of the greatest behind the musics ever because of the drama with that band. But yeah, super talented as both a writer, of many of their greatest songs, and as a singer, and had a great distinct voice. I will say on a like weird, humble, braggy thing about a tragedy. It made me glad, Matt, again, that Trish and I saw Fleetwood Mac on their like 2014 or 2014 or 15, I forget, but their last, what will now forever be their last tour with that lineup. And it was when she came back, because she left the band in 98, and the big deal was she came back, and it was like those five again.
Yeah.
Like the dream team are back. And then they did that tour, and then there's always a falling out, and this time it was Lindsey Buckingham being kicked out. And it was like, will he ever come back? We'll see. I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to see that lineup. But now, tragically, it's like she's passed away, so there's never going to be that lineup again. But yeah, just super talented. And it was like you really kind of saw like it was one of those things where a lot of like huge bands and musicians and Duran Duran and Garbage and of course Stevie Nicks had a super emotional thing about it. That like just a lot of respect for her. So great music from her.
I speaking of bands that you regret you've never seen, well, you did see, so you have no regrets, but I am a huge REM fan and never have seen them live, and most likely never will. Right. Even if there is an off chance that the three members that were continuing on beyond Bill Berry's departure from the band get back together, it would still just be like not with Bill Berry. It would be like just the three of them without the other, the fourth. And I had tickets to see REM. A ticket, I was going to go with 2 or 3 other people to see REM in 1994, Eric, in 1994 in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. But guess what happened? I had to be stupid and leave UCLA and go back to New York to go to NYU that summer. And the concert was in November. And so I didn't go to that show. And then in my head, I was like, oh, well, it will happen someday, and then it never did. We've talked about,
I know we've talked on this podcast about never seeing Nirvana when we thought we would. A big one for me,
we were going to that Lollapalooza,
exactly, but yeah, it didn't happen. But a recent-ish, past few years, regret I had was I always wanted to see Tom Petty in concert, and he kind of perennially toured. So when I would miss one, I go the next one. And then there was no next one. So it's like now I'm into like, you got to act on these things.
There was a big whoop-de-doo hullabaloo about everything with Ticketmaster and Taylor Swift. We won't get into, but I paid a fuck ton of money to see Depeche Mode. I don't think it was Taylor Swift levels of overcharging, right. But because I've never seen Depeche Mode before, and you never know when it's their final tour, one of the 3 remaining members died this past summer. So it's only 2. It was only Martin Gore and Dave Gahan right now. And I'm like, maybe this is it. I don't know. I got to see him. So bought tickets for San Antonio and Madison Square Garden. So, but also it will be crazy because within a calendar year, Depeche Mode panning out, I'm assuming, I will have seen Depeche Mode, The Cure, Duran Duran, Bauhaus, Echo and the Bunnymen, Morrissey, like so many of my 80s favorites that like my cup runneth over is what I'm saying. Very fortunate.
Good. Fortunate. Yeah, no, you're on quite a run. I'm impressed.
All right. Now let's talk about okay. So I've been busy moving today and setting up things like internet and television and all the things that you kind of need to survive in this modern day at my new place. So I did not watch the Cocaine Bear trailer And then Eric yelled at me and scolded me before, and I was like,
Yes.
I was like, Eric, you can just talk about Cocaine Bear. You can tell me the details of Cocaine Bear. I feel like I get the idea of Cocaine Bear. I feel like I can grasp it. But he was like, no, you got to watch it. So he just basically on Zoom watched me watch it.
I did.
And I watched it beforehand.
I got a live react, guys.
I did, and I went, "Whoa, cocaine! That bear did a lot of cocaine."
Yes.
I think my biggest reaction was, "Wow, it's the TikTok guy," which is what
I know.
that's. I popped for him the most, more than Kerry Russell or Alden Ehrenreich. I was like, "Well, TikTok customer service guy," who I assumed is one of the first people to get mauled by Cocaine Bear.
Well, no, but he makes it longer because then he's in the truck at the end with Margot Martindale. So he survives that the door slamming down on
I hope
him.
he survives all the way to the end. And then
Me too. I hope everyone else
rant.
dies except him.
So directed by Elizabeth Banks, comes to us,
Produced by Lord and Miller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lord and Miller bringeth to us Cocaine Bear, the 2022's, well, when is it coming out? 2023's version of Snakes on a Plane, which is to say, I'm not cementing this. I'm just putting it out there. And I told you, Eric, I got burned by Snakes on a Plane, which is to say the title is funny. The trailer is funny. The movie is fine. So it's like the title itself and the trailer are way funnier than the actual finished product, which is, I hope, not the fate for Cocaine Bear, which looks like a lot of fun. And I feel like Elizabeth Banks has a good handle on the silliness of it. So
I'm very helpful with her directing, with Lord and Miller producing, and just this crazy cast. I didn't really realize until watching the trailer that it was a Americans reunion with Kerry Russell and Margot Martindale fighting a cocaine bear. And yeah, just it's one of Ray Liotta's final performances. Oh, according to Wikipedia, Matthew Rhys is in it, and I'm guessing it might be a cameo. You got Isaiah Whitlock.
I hope he's
Jr.
the voice
from
of
The
Cocaine
Wire.
Bear.
Maybe. Anyway, this trailer had a moment today. Today's we record this, so you'll hear this tomorrow. But yeah, you always hope these things can deliver. I've mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned it on this podcast or not. I was very lucky when I saw Snakes on a Plane because I saw it with an absolutely crazy audience that delivered, even though I do agree the movie was just ho-hum ultimately, I still kind of saw the optimal Snakes on a Plane experience of my audience being so crazy opening night. But yeah, Cocaine Bear, it's his world, we're living in it.
Is this Ray Liotta's final role, filmed
There's
role?
apparently it's not. A lot of people said
Okay.
it'd be fun if it were, but apparently
It would be fun.
He's got
but
3 movies in the can. This is the
Okay.
first of 3 more movies that he's got going on.
All right. And it's, it is, so it's based on the premise. The premise is based on the story of a bear who actually devoured a full bag of cocaine back in the 80s. But
yeah, but this is going in a lot of,
but it takes it way more serious than that. No, just kidding. Okay. And then also yesterday was the full trailer, but there'll be another one coming up too before the movie comes out. The first full trailer for Super Mario Brothers, with a clearer, though not spotlighted, version of Chris Pratt's voice. We don't get a lot of full sentences from him. We get a lot of woo and oh and and he gives us a let's it go. We get that. We mostly hear Charlie Day's Luigi and Jack Black's Bowser.
Yeah,
stuff like that. And is that Anya Taylor-Joy, right, as Princess, as Peach? So they speak a lot more than they're still keeping I think Pratt on the back burner, but the movie still looks like a heck of a lot of fun at the multiplex. So.
I was very sold by this trailer. I mean, the first one was fine too, but this one I was like, first of all, the animation looks really good.
Yeah.
And second of all, yeah, it just looks like a very enjoyable. And they, they twist those nostalgia beats when it ends with the Mario Kart sequence and Rainbow Road. I was like, hell yeah.
It's called the road. It's called the Rainbow Road.
And I will say, when I watched the trailer, I kind of had blanked out while I was watching it that Chris Pratt was voicing Mario. So it was only when I went on Twitter after, and everyone was talking about the Pratt of it all again. I go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be really invested in that because I don't really care that much. But Although I do agree, it's like, yeah, they're not like spotlighting him, but also it did seem to sell a lot more people be like, it's fine. Because I think the trailer people were just like, hey, this looks fine, so they're not gonna like die over him
I'm gonna
voicing
die. I'm gonna throw up, and then I'm gonna die.
after I see this movie.
All right. That's all the news. That's the nerd news for you guys. That's the dork news, and we're gonna get into our good things to enjoy soon. But first, we've got I already did one of the write-ins from Brando. Now we've got Ben writing in on Patreon, and thanks to our Patreon Hudson Hawks out there, you can catch our recent Andor episode, like I said, as well as all of our. We did quite a few last month. We will have one coming up. We'll try to do it this weekend for the Guardians holiday special.
Oh, are we still doing that? I know.
Let's just do it. Let's do it.
Okay, because I thought that ship had sailed.
No. It's only
Okay.
it's less than a week.
All right.
We can still do it. It doesn't have to be super long, but we can do it.
Okay.
But Ben writes in on Patreon, thanking us for the Andor episode and saying that he's a similar age to both of us and saw the original trilogy in theaters and grew up with Star Wars. Basically, Eric, he's talking to us about our discussion on the Andor cast about like growing up with a thing that you saw as a kid and becoming an adult, and the fandom being divided about who the property should be for. Should it be for us adults now, or should it be for kids that we used to be but are no longer, so on and so forth. So he writes, one thing that gets lost in Star Wars arguments online is that it shouldn't have become the box office juggernaut it was in the 70s and 80s. It wouldn't have become the box office juggernaut it was in the 70s and 80s if it hadn't gotten all the demographics out to see it multiple times. My parents saw the first one on a date without kids and loved it so much they took my brother and I over and over again. One of my favorite things over the past few years is being able to watch Marvel and Star Wars shows with my kids. When the title card for Mandalorian season 2 episode The Rescue came up on my screen, my kids and I cheered at the same time. It was the best. Content like The Mandalorian and Andor can be enjoyed just as much by a millennial or younger, or for my parents in their 70s and everyone in between. Like you guys always say, if our kid selves could see what genre movies and TV look like now, our minds would be blown. It's exact. Yeah. I try to like step back and think about that every time I'm complained about.
To think that we're like,
vast amount of content. Yeah.
To think that we could even say like, well, yeah, they sure made a shitty Morbius movie. Like that's ludicrous.
I know. And like we will be saying in November next year, man, Craven sucked. Anyway, but like,
who are we to get these movies? Like,
yeah, we don't even deserve these sucky Spider-Man rogues gallery villain movies, where they're not treated as villains. God, Eric. Okay,
I know.
I have banked a few movies for future good things to enjoy because I saw quite a few on the when I'm on a plane. I try to watch one movie, maybe that's a comfort movie that I've seen before. Other than that, I try to catch things that I've never seen. I will say that I watched 2 movies that you recommended on the podcast. I watched Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which I wanted to see anyway, your recommendation regardless. But you did recommend Emily the Criminal, so I did watch that as well, and I enjoyed both of those movies. They're different movies.
Glad to hear it. It's funny you mentioned that because literally 8 minutes before we started this podcast, I finished something you recommended on this podcast, which was The Bear. And when you said
you finished it, okay, good.
Yeah. When you said you couldn't record till 8, I said, okay, I've got 3 more episodes of The Bear to watch, and I watched them. I did, and that was terrific.
Yes. The Bear is so good. It's one of my favorites of the year.
Very funny to me. It's also, I think it's up there now for me too. But it's funny because I instantly thought about how it's funny that it is up there with another one of my favorites, which is Reservation Dogs, and how it is interesting that these are 2 FX on Hulu shows that have a very similar thing about how the death of someone before the series began looms over these characters. And it's like this integral part is like, can they deal with this death of someone who was, very important in their lives. And even though Reservation Dogs was in season 2, it still was like really kind of building to a big moment about that, just like The Bear was. So
I want to call out how good John Bernthal is just as an actor. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. This isn't like devastating news, which is to say that he's been the lead on shows, obviously, but he's also able to pop in cameos. And we're talking about The Bear, or we're talking about even
Wind
in
River.
like Wind River, right?
Yeah.
Where he can just have 6 minutes of screen time and you just get who his character is and you are sold on him. He's so natural and so good that he doesn't need any buildup. He can just come in and just exist, and it works in anything. Anyway, he's great. Okay.
I agree. And I'll quickly tangent to say that because, Walking Dead just ended, and a show that, I stopped watching.
Did I watch all of it? Yes.
Yeah, Matt did stay till the end. But a very treasured memory I have is visiting the pilot of the set of the pilot of that show, and interviewing Darabont, and interviewing Andrew Lincoln, and interviewing John Bernthal in his trailer, not knowing who I knew what character he was playing, and I'd read the comics, so I knew that, oh, this is guy playing Shane, but it kind of just being a cool moment because he was about to like break out, and I have this like sort of cool memory of just sitting, just me and him in his trailer, and him talking about what a big deal it was getting this part and this and that. So I'm like, look at John Bernthal,
and you're like, hey, you're Kurt Angle's cousin. All right,
that's right.
So The Walking Dead. It's not over, obviously, because there's a couple spin-offs
3
coming.
major spin-offs about your favorite characters.
But man, the way that that finale was like, okay. So what was I getting at? Oh, so anyway, I banked quite a few of those. I just wanted to let you know that I saw some of those films that you had previously recommended, but I've got some in reserve. But we're going to get into our good things to enjoy right now. And I'll go first, which is to say I'm not doing a movie because I told everyone I was going to do music, and I'm going to do it through this month. I'll start again next week. I've done 2 albums so far. I'll do 3 and
through November, because again, as we record this, it's the last day of November.
yeah. So it's the 30th right now. It'll be the first when you guys get this. So I am recommending, since I'm just recommending random albums that I absolutely adore, is Chibo Mato's Viva La Woman. Eric, you went with me to a Chibo Mato concert.
I sure did.
I dragged you kicking and screaming. No, we didn't. You wanted to see them.
I enjoyed them.
Chibo Mato, for those who don't know, were big in the 90s. And big is a huge stretch. They existed in the 90s.
They had a following.
They had a following that consisted of me and maybe a few others.
Yeah, a few others.
Their debut album, Viva La Woman, was in 1995. I saw them for the first time on a show called Viva Variety. No relation to the album title Viva La Woman, by the way.
But this
Viva
was one
Variety.
of the many state connections.
Yes,
right?
this was Tom Lennon, Kerry Kinney, and Michael Ian Black. So 3 of the state. I don't know if David Wayne or anyone else was involved in the writing or behind the scenes, but they were the present ones on the screen. And it was a weird concept. I believe it was Comedy Central. And anyway, it was it wasn't quite a sketch show. It was like a fake variety show with Lennon and Kenny playing the hosts who were previously married but now divorced, and Michael Ian Black playing Johnny Blue Jeans. But because they were a fake variety show like SNL or something, they would have musical guests. Like Duran Duran was on, you know. Anyway, Chibo Mato was on an episode, and they played their song Birthday Cake. And I was like, I love this. So I went and got their album. And Chibo Mato consists...
Didn't they play the Bronze? Didn't Chibo Mato...
So their breakout, their most famous moment would be the fact that they had a music video for their song Sugar Water that was directed by Michel Gondry, who directed many music videos.
Yep.
And that song was on an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer because they were one of the band's non-Seth Green fronted bands who performed at the Bronze, and where they were performing Sugar Water. And Chibo Mato is basically instrumentalist Yuka Honda and vocalist Miho Hattori. They are basically Japan-born Americans who come together with like hip hop and rock and sort of indie alternative sensibilities in their music. And Viva La Woman is their debut album. Stereotype A, which is their follow-up album, is also very good, but it is a different style than their first one, which was kind of just the two of them. And then the second album, they have more of a band, like Sean Lennon actually. John Lennon's son was the bassist for them when they became a full band, which is what you saw when we went to the concert.
Mm-hmm.
But Viva La Woman is an amazing album that it's just trippy. There's trip hop elements, there's punk rock elements to it, and I love both of them. They do a cover on that album of the Candyman from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And a lot of the albums are about food, and for a non-Weird Al Yankovic related act, doing a food album is pretty admirable. And they have like a Beef Jerky and Know Your Chicken are two famous songs off that album. I keep saying famous and big. They are not famous and big at all. They are in my mind, just to me. But I recommend giving Viva La Woman a listen. I think it's quite fun. Also, Chibo Mato are sort of unofficial Grand Royale record members, even though they were never signed by Grand Royale, which was the Beastie Boys label throughout the 90s. They were Warner Brothers signed, but they were kind of they performed on a lot of Grand Royale things. Like Miho Hattori is on Hello Nasty. She's also does some vocals for the Gorillaz and stuff like that. But they're kind of part of the Grand Royale family too. Interesting element up there. So, and they were at one of the Lilith fairs where Vivian, my friend Vivian, got either was my CD or her CD or a copy of Stereotype A signed by them for me. And I don't know where that is now, honestly.
You son of a bitch.
Okay, what is your good thing to enjoy, Eric?
Mine is a movie. Again, I think I saw this right after we recorded last time. That has been in theaters now for a couple weeks, and doing relatively well for the size of the movie it is. But The Menu, which had I thought a very intriguing trailer. And I thought that this movie very much delivered on that trailer. It's interesting. The director, Mark Malloyd, he did a couple movies early in his career, including the Ali G movie. But then his last theatrical film was 2011, and he'd just been doing a lot of TV since.
Well, he's been doing Succession, right?
13 episodes of Succession, 6 episodes of Game of Thrones. But this is his first movie now in 11 years. And I really enjoyed this movie. And, it stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult. And they are this couple who go to a private island to the snootiest of snooty highbrow restaurants that it's for the super rich to go to this very small, I think 12 people eat at this restaurant at a time. And Ralph Fiennes plays the head chef, the celebrated head chef here, who is always changing up the menu. And as the trailer makes clear, something is amiss. Something dark is being planned by Ralph Fiennes and his staff that will sort of be slowly revealed. What is going on here, what he's doing, why he's doing it. And will kind of all come out. And I really like this movie, which is very not subtle. I was looking at the reviews and they're mostly very positive, but a few kind of ding it because it's this is so on the nose, and it is, but I kind of went with it on that as far as what it's saying, why it's saying about these people, why he's sort of targeting them. It's a really terrific performance by Ralph Fiennes, who obviously is established as a great actor, but this is a really interesting, fun role for him. And he and Anya Taylor-Joy kind of have a lot of really great sort of dynamic, sort of trying to take the measure of each other. I think their characters. Nicholas Hoult is really funny, not playing. It's not like he's at all like his character on The Great exactly, but he's certainly carving out a certain place for himself. It's these sort of
well, I'm glad
douchey...
I'm glad he's getting to interact with Furiosa in a different form from his character.
But he's this sort of funny, douchey, oblivious in a very different way than The Great. But also still a very entertaining here. And then I also really love Hong Chow, who I really know mostly from Watchmen, even though looking at her credits is she's been doing a ton in the past decade, including on Big Little Lies. and she was in Treme, which I did watch, I think, the first season of. So I've certainly seen her in things, but in the past couple of years, with Watchmen and now this, really becoming kind of a standout. She plays his sous chef, and she is really fun and really just like the attitude she brings. So yeah, I would describe it as like, is it horror? I'd say it's a super black comedy. There's some slight echoes of Ready or Not, but I still say Ready or Not leans more to horror, even though it's still darkly comedic. This is a black comedy. Dark things happen for sure. But in a way that, I don't know, just sort of like, feels like just darkly funny the whole way through. And I quite enjoyed The Menu, which is now playing in theaters.
It's funny to me when I think that The Menu is it's obviously it's not like a Marvel, or it's not Wakanda Forever or Black Adam. It's that some people might not know about it, because I think, did I mention this on the podcast or do you separately? Every time we go to Alamo, we see a trailer for The Menu, and we only go to Alamo for movies, really, honestly. Yeah. But we see The Menu every time we see a movie, and that means new release or an old movie. Like if you go to see Jaws or something like that, every time The Menu trailer plays. So I felt like in my head, I was like, I'm going to wait 6 months to see this because I kind of need time away from the trailer, kind of like The Night House, which is which
again is because you go to Alamo way more than me.
It's kind of all I go to.
You mentioned this with Don't Worry, Darling. That you've seen the trailer a million times.
I saw that trailer,
and I'm like, well, I saw the trailer for Don't Worry, Darling like 3 times, and it was probably twice at the Alamo.
No, now just imagine it's 15 times or something. But then when I was overseas, I was seeing on Twitter how many people were liking this. Like people that I follow were like really digging this movie. I was like, okay, maybe I need to catch it before it leaves theaters.
You should go see it at the Alamo, Matt.
I will. Well, I gotta see Violent Night, and I gotta see Pinocchio.
Oh, you should see that, which I saw at the Alamo. Speaking of Violent Night, with the supporting cast here, with all the other customers at the restaurant, it's an interesting mix of like people I didn't really know, like these 3 actors playing like sort of the young like tech douches. All have worked. I just didn't like recognize them offhand. But then you've got mixed in like John Leguizamo, who's also in Violent Night, playing like kind of a semi-washed up actor. And I didn't know Judith Light was in this from Who's the Boss.
Yeah, I saw it because I've seen the trailer. I was like, that's Judith Light. And
that's part of
then again, I'm like, that's Judith Light.
Older couple who've come to see this guy at his restaurant several times. Yeah. Anyway, it's a cool mix. I like when movies do that, because sometimes it's like everyone's a star. But this one mixes up the veterans and the newbies, and everyone does very good. Anyway.
All right.
Check it out, Matt.
I will try. I really do want to. Okay. So for our main event next week, this is what we're doing for the next 4 correct weeks, Eric? 4?
Yes.
Okay.
We committed. Well, we decided we're not gonna skip for Christmas, even though we'll probably pre-record.
We'll pre-record. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we are going back through our couple years of good things to enjoy, movies wise, not like podcasts or TV shows. And we're picking 4. Eric picks 2 and I pick 2. And we're going to watch some of the things we've already recommended to you people. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't clear in our email communication what I originally meant, but Eric took it a step further that I think even works even better, which is that he actually picked a movie off my good things to enjoy list. So I shall pick things off his good things to enjoy list. I will specifically be picking movies that he recommended that I have not seen. So, but next week
I'm picking one. Yeah. I am picking in a couple weeks. We'll do one I haven't seen as well. The one we're doing next week, I have seen, but it's been a long time.
So one of the first movies, good things to enjoy, I recommended. I think it was like the 3rd or 4th episode.
It was the first episode when we officially did this segment.
Oh, it was the first one. Okay.
It was the 3rd episode of the podcast, but it was the first time we did
the first recommendation. So, Eric, what will we be watching next week?
We are going to be watching Michael Mann's Last of the Mohicans.
So good. I love this.
Which I believe is from 1992. Because there was earlier versions of that story based from that book. But 1992's Last of the Mohicans. I noticed, incidentally, that if you look for this movie online, it seems like, I guess because it was the preferred version now, the director's cut is the only version you can rent or buy. which is what I actually decided. I just bought it today, Matt, because I'm like, I remember loving this movie. I'm just gonna buy it. But you can rent or buy it, and it'll be the director's cut. So that's what I'm gonna watch. I will say it is on Peacock and AMC Plus currently. I just don't know which version is on those streaming services. So, we're going to talk about this. This is always going to happen. It's even going to happen with today's main event.
It will, because I watched the original factory setting version of Wolfman, and Eric watched the
unrated cut.
17 minutes longer unrated version.
Yes.
Which is fine by me, because a shorter version of this is as close as you can get to a tight 90. I'm for.
So I'm not 100% sure which version you'll see if you watch those streaming services, but they are on both of those.
All right,
or you can rent or buy it.
Let's dig into Joe Johnston's The Wolfman. Joe Johnston came into this project apparently just weeks before principal photography started, because he replaced Mark Romanek, who's directed a few movies I like.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, mostly more so, music videos I like. But yeah, Mark Romanek left the project, and Joe Johnston, a year before we would get Joe Johnston giving us Captain America: The First Avenger, though still already an established director, Jumanji, I believe, kind of put basically.
Well, no,
I Shrunk the Kids.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. His first movie was a big hit.
Yeah, it kind of like really helped solidify him. We have done actually a Joe Johnston movie on the podcast already, Jurassic Park 3,
which is fun. We keep doing like his lesser movies, but the guy's directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Captain America: The First Avenger. He's directed some really good stuff.
Well, now we've come to his best work yet, which is The Wolfman. All right.
And by the way, which I noticed, it's like, not that he's always been like not super prolific, like he only does like usually like 3 movies a decade, but I've actually noticed that after The Wolfman, he directed a movie, after Captain America. So he did Captain America, obviously his biggest deal movie, but then he directed a movie called Not Safe for Work in 2014, and that's kind of his last movie, because 2018 he is listed as a co-director on The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, but that's a notoriously messy movie where Lasse Hallström directed it, and then they did such extensive reshoots with Joe Johnston that they were both listed as director. So yeah, it's a wild world out there in Hollywood.
It is. And Joe Johnston directs something else. How about that? How about you get off your ass?
I remember there was talk of him directing an Agent Carter episode, though it ended up not happening.
Nobody wants to Joe Johnston anymore. That's what I'm saying.
The
Wolfman has elements to it, like having watched this. This is obviously, if you've been following us on this whole werewolf marathon, a remake of the first movie, the original 1941 Universal film, The Wolfman. We've got Lawrence Talbot coming back to Talbot Hall. We've got Anthony Hopkins as his father, Sir John. Emily Blunt is playing Gwen. And then we've got some other sort of make-em-ups that there's a more focused other character played by Hugo Weaving, who's actually kind of based on the Frederick Aberlane investigator of the Ripper case character, an actual person in history, but he's not actually him unless this person turns into a werewolf. And they twist. So if you recall, Eric, when we were talking about the original movie, the brother dies, and our 2022 brains are kind of going into motion saying like, oh, well, that's going to come back to mean something.
Like he only reason Lawrence comes back to his father's home is his brother died in the original.
And it was like a hunting accident. But then in the original movie, nothing came of that. Like we thought it would be connected to the wolf. We thought something was going on. Was there a family history with this? And then nothing, there was no indication of any of that. And this movie leans heavily into all the things that we felt were kind of missing from the original, yet it still feels like kind of a mess of a movie that was rewritten a bunch of times and couldn't settle anything. That being said, I didn't actually hate this movie. But what this movie does is it turns everything inward and gives us a villain. Like it gives us not just the Curse of the Werewolf being the sort of esoteric villain. Sir John himself, Anthony Hopkins, becomes the film's villain, and to the point where there's a wolf fight 5,000 at the end of the movie.
Yes.
And It was notable too for having a Danny Elfman score and Rick Baker behind the makeup effects going forward, even though there was CG. It is interesting to know, after all the werewolf movies we've watched, if you watch the transformation and some of the elements of this movie, it kind of borrows from everything. You know, like there's the original, because he's got to look like the original Wolfman, but the transformation obviously has elements of Rick Baker's like American Werewolf in London. The werewolf himself goes through a tear through London, so there is kind of an American Werewolf in London. There's traffic accidents caused by it. And so it's funny to notice things being pulled from other elements of wolf cinema lore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I think is inescapable. I mean, I guess, while we're talking about that, I'll also mention this movie does a very funny thing. And, look, we've talked about the werewolf movies in particular. It happens with vampire movies too, but watching these werewolf movies, it really stuck out how they're all kind of building upon one each other, how heavily referencing each other. It's like, the Wolfman, 1941 is the Wolfman and Curse of the Werewolf being referenced in multiple of these movies we've watched, or sometimes even just footage shown. But what was really funny to me in this movie, Matt, was that they make it kind of canon lore that the whole, like, you must be killed by a loved one thing, which is theorized in American Werewolf in London because of the werewolf movie.
Because of this movie. Yeah,
because of the original. And so here they took like a theory of a character in American Werewolf London, and I'm sure because they were like watching all of them, including that theory in American Werewolf London, and they made it part of like their lore. So it's just kind of funny to see how
the other thing they did is they made
itself.
the villagers aware right out of the gate what was happening, to the point where, like, after Lawrence gets bit, the villagers are like, all right, come with us, you're a werewolf.
Right, another goddamn werewolf.
So there was no hemming and hawing about who could be doing this. Literally a werewolf is lightning massacring everyone in front of them, so they're not going to be like, it's a lunatic.
We should also mention, by the way, the writers of this movie, because they're very notable, is Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Seven and Sleepy Hollow.
Eric, have you watched on Shudder the 100 greatest scariest moments in horror movie countdown, where Andrew Kevin Walker is there? I've never knew what he looked like. And he's there with like his red sunglasses and his rings and his long blonde hair looking, I don't know. He looks like one of those aging rockers we've been going to see in concert.
And then David Self, who wrote Road to Perdition, did some rewrites uncredited on The Bourne Identity. Anyway, all of which to say is there's a lot of very talented people on this movie that ends up to a pretty ho-hum movie. And that's just how it works out sometimes. It's like, especially with these big studio movies. And this was a funny movie when you really think back on it, because this kicked off a decade of Universal trying really hard to bring back their classic Universal monsters and failing over and over again until they went small with The Invisible Man and Blumhouse, because it's like they did this one, they did Dracula Untold, and they infamously did The Mummy with the Dark Universes here.
Yeah, so the Wolfman, this wasn't even part of the Dark Universe. So this movie was... It's crazy to think that just a few years after this movie, they were going to also try to reboot it again for the Dark Universe.
Yeah.
Like because they needed everything started up again.
Yeah. But they kept trying with these giant budgets. I think always thinking about what successes they'd had with the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, but never able to sort of recapture that.
You know what brought back the Universal monsters the best in last decade? Penny Dreadful.
Oh yeah.
That was the only successful return of those characters. So
yes, but then they did have a big hit with Invisible Man, which was like, let's make this small scale and not try to be like a blockbuster in the way that we're trying with these other ones.
All right. What'd you think of the movie? I thought it was all right.
It was all right, but it didn't have a lot of character to it. And again, as someone who's really liked a lot of what Joe Johnston's done, and certainly liked his two different World War II era superhero movies, this did not seem like the right wheelhouse for him. It didn't have a lot of like atmosphere that you want from a movie like this, even though there were some shots that were cool. It just kind of lacked, like it wasn't creepy, it wasn't spooky or kooky. No, it just didn't ever like click in And so it just kind of felt like, okay, this is happening now. But I was never like really fully engaged by it, and I completely understand why you're like, yeah, I didn't need to see the 17 minutes longer version.
Yeah, I was like, when you offered me this shorter version, I was like, yep, I'll take that. I mean, let's put it, we should say this at least. The werewolf kills way more people in this movie than he does in the original movie.
Oh yeah, there's like outright massacres. Like
Yeah,
when he first becomes the Wolfman, it's not just like he kills a guy.
Yeah.
So
I just want to go on record saying I greatly appreciated that part. And all the stomach ripping and hand mauling and decapitations that went along with it. I did think it was funny skipping to the middle, I guess, where the one guy's sort of like trapped in a lagoon, like he's up to his waist in the water, and the werewolf's coming at him, and he goes to kill himself, like doesn't want to be taken by the zombies, like save the last bullet for my brain. And the gun clicks, it's empty, and he's like, oh no, I wasn't able to save myself from a horrible death. Well, then what happens? He just gets decapitated. He gets an instant death anyway. So either way, he was going to get spared a rather agonizing death. So
I think some of the most notable things that were cut that were in the unrated version that
I didn't see anything with the wolf cane.
Right. First of all, you didn't see there was the cool return of the 1940s Universal logo at the top, except it's kind of like colorized, like it's purposely kind of given this like golden look. But the main thing is that because here's what I'm guessing happens, Matt. Does the movie begin with Ben, his brother, being killed, and then he's like arriving to meet with his father?
Ben's killed, and then we hear Emily Blunt's voiceover of the letter she has written to Lawrence, and we get a little quick montage of his time on stage.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering also why they decided to make him an actor. I don't know.
Right.
They could have made him anything.
The actor thing is funny. I mean, I was certainly amused by how they bent over backwards to be like, we want to set this in 1890s England, but we want Benicio the Toro to be our star. Okay, we'll say that his like mother was Latina, but we also he's American, so we're gonna have to say that he was partially raised in America. There's like a lot of like, stuff to like make that work. But so in the version I saw, he has a full scene of like performing on stage, and then the first big difference is Gwen, Emily Blunt, comes to see him, and it's like,
that's not
your brother's missing, can you help? And him saying, no, I can't help, I'm touring, and then changing his mind, deciding to go home. And then yes, a big cameo scene of Max von Sydow on a train with him, giving him the cane, basically making references to the fact that he's, you can kind of put two and two together, that he's dealt with werewolves before, and trying to give him the cane, and him saying no thank you. But when he falls asleep, Max von Sydow just leaves the cane with him and leaves. And so when he wakes up, the cane is there. All that got cut. But the funniest thing, Matt, is that I'm not sure at what point where they changed their mind on having Emily Blunt see him or whatnot. But there is a weird continuity error in the unrated version, because she comes to see him, except then he says to his dad, and he also references, Gwen sent me a letter. But that's not what we saw. We saw her come to see him.
I heard the voiceover of the letter she wrote him saying, you're in London, I hope you can make it out here. Like, you will come here. So at no point does she meet him ahead of time. This is a movie where Anthony Hopkins is fine. He's being Anthony Hopkins. He gets to have actually more of a character than anyone else in the movie, because he's revealed as the head werewolf. It's notable, if you've seen the original, watching the differences here, which is Lawrence is an actual creep who like spies on women and then goes to pretend and then goes and tells them that he saw what's in their bedroom. But the other one is when the wolf attacks him and bites him, the wolf isn't killed and goes off screen. So that's kind of an indicator that someone in the movie is going to be this wolf, because they don't kill the wolf. They just sort of scare it off.
Right. Also, we should mention, you mentioned how, when we watched the original, we how we assumed the brother's death would tie into the main plot, and it doesn't. Well, the other thing that they do that I think is like, a clever way to, sort of rewrite the original is that Gwen's fiance being the dead brother. So there's not the strange like
Right.
weirdness.
She doesn't, and like, well, because the
of
original
her
movie,
having a
she has a
fiance
fiance.
that's
Yeah.
not really a love triangle because he's just kind of dismissed by everyone.
But Eric, they didn't get rid of the antique shop though.
No,
She still
no.
has an antique shop. They
Yes.
saved that for the third act. Yeah, so Anthony Hopkins is sort of chewing the scenery here, and then Hugo Weaving comes in as sort of an interesting Hugo Weaving type, you know, like the
And again, him and
everything
Joe
is-
Johnson will work together again a year later on Captain America.
basing everything off of like, you know, him gaining his stardom from playing Agent Smith, and so that's sort of like the kind of the role he was sort of like shoveled into. He's kind of doing a bit of that here. Benicio del Toro and Emily Blunt, though, have sort of the thankless roles of being like the weird romantic leads in a movie where you have to believe that two people can fall in love after 5 minutes of skipping rocks. You know, it's the same with the original, right? Like we don't know why she fell in love with the Lawrence in the original movie either, because at the end of the movie she's willing to run off with him, and you're like, okay, why? I don't understand this at all. But like, yeah, they just feel sort of blank. They kind of give her she feels like she has a very thankless role up until the end when she becomes more proactive, where she's like,
to an extent.
It's still very, very cut and paste Hollywood 101 stuff. It's not uninteresting stuff, you know.
What's interesting about their casting, especially now, like in 2022, looking back, is in Benicio del Toro, great actor, but like sort of a, you know, born to be a weird, quirky character actor / indie star. So this was a very notable thing that they're like, here, you're the star of a $150 million Universal movie, is like, you know, one of those sort of big swings. And not to say it can never work, because we've had Nicolas Cage and people that kind of you wouldn't think would become like these like big, you know, stars in that way. But it's a weird fit. And then Emily Blunt, of course, who, you know, she'd already done Devil Wears Prada, her sort of breakout, but she hadn't become like kind of the megastar she is now. And the thing about Emily Blunt is, if you look at the past decade, is she plays these very sort of strong characters. And even when she's in a movie with The Rock, it's like she is a very like, strong and forthright character in her own.
Yeah, if you look at like Edge of Tomorrow or Quiet Place,
So to see her play the love interest, you know, 90% of the movie, to just kind of be like, she's the girl, is a very unusual thing.
Because I remember last week when I was peeking at the cast, I was like, oh, it's got a good cast, but it's like, oh, they don't get to do shit. They don't get to do anything. And it's like Benicio del Toro has very little dialogue. You know, Anthony Hopkins is given the bulk of the dialogue, and there's just not a lot of conversations happening, and he'll have a line here or there, but like as much of sort of a sex pest as the original Lawrence was, like Lon Chaney Jr. was way more of way more of a character to me.
And it felt like he was going through some shit
than this guy. And this guy was an actor, and the original Lawrence was just like someone who built things with optical lenses or something. It was which is why I was like, why change the profession at all? Like, why? I don't know why, because it doesn't come. It's not like later on he needs to act to escape the clutches of a werewolf. Like he needs.
There's that one scene. There's that one scene where Anthony Hopkins is like, I never understood you wanting to pretend to be other people. But yeah, it's pretty thin. And if you're gonna cast Del Toro in a movie like this, you want it to be like a Captain Jack Sparrow, or a lot of the roles Cage plays, where you're like, let's lean into the fact that this is a quirky actor and give him something quirky to do. But he's not. It's like, it's kind of a dull, just like he's, you know, this is all happening. But he's not an interesting character, even though you have such an interesting actor playing him.
All right, let's get into the look of the movie. Like, it looks nice. I mean, like it's grander, obviously. Blackmoor, where they live, is this looks like a cursed land, and Talbot Hall has some very serious Grey Gardens vibes, and like it's run down, and
it's it looks cool with how huge and ornate it is.
And there's topiary animals outside. There's like a gorilla and a tiger. There's stuffed animals inside. The dog is back. This time, he's actually got a servant named Singh, who is played by what's the actor's name? I know this guy. Art Malik. I know him from The Living Daylights, the James Bond movie. That's but he's been in countless other things. He was the villain, I believe.
He was one James Bond movie away from Benicio del Toro, who was in License to Kill, the next one.
That's true. They both worked with Timothy Dalton as James Bond in the 2 Timothy Dalton James Bond movies, and I believe he was the villain in what was the True Lies. Remember, he gets fired on the rocket.
Was that him?
Yeah, that was him.
Oh.
So, and then we learn later on, like, the significance of this servant, even though he gets unceremoniously killed off screen, which is when we learn all about, like, sort of the dastardly machinations of Sir John here, who is given a much more sort of nefarious. I couldn't get a handle on Sir John as far as, like, what his son was concerned, because we learned that Sir John is a werewolf and became one in India during what seems to be the worst prank ever. Like, which is like the people in India was like, go see this weird creature in a cave, which is like, oh, the tricks they play on foreigners. And he gets bitten by a feral werewolf kid and comes home with being a werewolf. And there's a whole thing where he accidentally killed his wife, Lawrence's mother, and Lawrence saw this as a kid and got convinced that his mom actually killed herself. But in reality, he was
locked up in a mental institution for a year.
In an asylum. It's a whole thing.
Sent to live with his aunt in America.
So the father has been having his servant lock him up in a chair, which, from the look of it, even when we saw that chair when they went into the mother's crypt, didn't seem like it could hold a wolf, because certainly it didn't in the asylum later on in the third act of the movie when he kills all those people. But then one night Singh isn't available. He knocked him out and he gets out as the wolf. And that's when he killed his other son, Ben. And it's this thing where now it's not like he's felt this way the whole time. It's recently. He's like, I don't know why I've been locking myself up. I shouldn't have been. And then he turns his son into a werewolf. What does he think his son is going to do, though? Because his son gets arrested and sort of framed. Actually, he doesn't get framed. His son did it. Lawrence killed all those people, so he's rightfully captured, to say the least. Tortured, that's terrible. But, like, he is captured for things that he did. But then does his dad... I guess my question, I'll make it quick. My question is, what does his dad want from his son? Does his dad want him to embrace the wolf, be a wolf with him? Or does his dad really not care? Or, like, what does his dad want his werewolf son to be?
And that, I think, speaks to how the characterization sort of across the board is very weak here, because, like, of course, Hopkins is Hopkins. He'll have fun with this. But, like, John is pretty one note. He's an evil villain who's now killed multiple members of his family. And yes, he says the words, I do love you, son, but it doesn't really feel like it. It's like, it just feels like he's, like, indiscriminately or totally cool with killing his wife and his other son. And so, yeah, it's like, I agree with you. I don't know exactly what he wants.
Well, he also gave him, like, a razor blade to kill himself with. So
yeah, he's like, if you can't be cool like me, just this is the other way out.
He's like, here's a razor if you're a lame-o.
Right, if you suck.
Let's hope you don't suck. Even though no one knows he's a werewolf, though. Everyone knows that. My point is that his son is a wanted man. Like, even if his son gets free, are they? He can't just go back to Talbot Hall. He can't. Yeah, exactly. Which the third act of this movie is Lawrence taking a full moon cycle to walk back home to Talbot Hall from London.
No cars.
So the things that are intact, interestingly enough, so he's touring Talbot Hall. He's there for his brother. Gwen is living there. They did work in the fact that his dad still has a telescope and looks at the moon, romanticizes the moon.
The gypsies and Maleva that sort of lead.
So they're sort of there. They're kind of downplayed. They're not as prominent here. But
Geraldine Chaplin, Charlie Chaplin's daughter, playing.
Yes, and the mother of Una Chapman, correct? And, like, from Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So there is a connection. They do still have some of the touchstones of the original movie, but things happen a little quicker, which is to say, the Citizens Brigade sets upon the gypsy camp and starts wreaking havoc while Lawrence is there asking about the medallion. But then at the same time, the werewolf attacks and kills a bunch of people. So it's not even like the part of the movie in the original part where they're like investigating Lawrence for a while, like could he have done it or something like that. It's all just happens, and no one thinks Lawrence did any of the stuff that happens at the gypsy camp, right?
Yeah. By the way, and this is where, because it is a unrated cut, I'm curious how much, how bloody this was for you, because this was pretty damn bloody. I mean, throughout the movie, there's like a lot of gushing blood and people being torn open. But this part especially, the one that really leapt out is when the cop finds the dead woman and he reaches to like touch her, and then the wolf like cuts off two of his fingers super graphically, and then like basically like punches through his head, like his like back of his head, and like out of his mouth comes claws.
I think I got most of the gore.
Okay.
It was pretty gory. I'm not saying I got all of it, but like
Okay.
from what I saw, it felt satisfyingly gory. So
yeah, it's definitely pretty.
I don't know.
And I didn't realize
you didn't get more
should mention
carnage.
Yeah, Rick Baker kind of returning to the werewolf world on this,
Yeah.
and winning another Oscar.
Mhm.
This also won the Oscar for Best
The
Makeup.
Academy Award winning The Wolfman, exactly.
Yeah, just like the first Suicide Squad, not the good one.
So then what we got? Okay, so we've got and then there's like they kept talking about the gypsy bear maybe being the one that did it. So we briefly do get a full just CGI bear. It doesn't play any important role in the movie. We never see it dancing because they say he doesn't kill anyone. He just dances, and it never comes back. So it's this weird thing where there is a CGI full animal in this movie.
Right.
It's very distracting. And then, and we already know that the villagers are aware of werewolf lore. Like when they're all like talking about it in the tavern, one of the guys was saying like, "Hey, my pa discovered a murder site years ago and melted down silver for bullets, and he never leaves the house on the full moon since then." And so they all know. The movie starts with that Wolfsbane blooms, quote.
Yeah.
But the villagers of this village, of Blackmore are well versed. It's also to say, like, it made me think like the actual village and pub that they go to in American Werewolf in London, because we question in that movie what the backstory of that whole town is.
Right.
And it maybe comes from something like this town, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that they've been dealing with a family like the Talbots or others. And it's just sort of a curse upon the lands. And I think back now to that movie and wondering if that's what they were aiming at, right? Like a village that has stood the test of time with these werewolves.
I think so. And yeah, it's like they show up and they're instantly like, they notice he's healed, and there's, the mark of the beast and all that. They like American Wolf in London. Yeah, it just seems like, the werewolves are a familiar sight in this area. So they're all very ready for it. And we should mention also that when Aberline shows up, that he was in charge of the Ripper case.
Yeah, so again, this was based on the actual Ripper investigator, Frederick Aberline, even though he's called Francis in this movie. But yeah, so he was a prominent figure in the Jack the Ripper killings, which is like an interesting like historical figure to kind of put in here. I don't know what this inspector. So it's like, what is this guy's worldview? I don't know.
Right.
Obviously, he's played by Hugo Weaving, and he's got Hugo Weaving like mannerisms and stuff like that. But like coming off the Ripper case where the killer was never found, what does he come into this with? Because is he supposed to be the skeptic? Obviously, he thinks it's Lawrence and kind of like teases around with that at the beginning. But everyone thinks it's Lawrence. Like, he's almost immediately captured by the villagers. So I don't know what Hugo Weaving, it's not like he's a non-believer who comes in and then is like, oh shit, werewolves exist or something like that.
Right.
He's just kind of like a thorn. Because he's not the one who even captures him. You know what I mean? Like
I know he
feels very passive.
Yeah, I mean, and then the only thing at the end is he's lightly there to set up a sequel because he gets bit at the end.
Right.
So it's like, oh, he'll be the new Wolfman.
And he's got
But
the wolf cane. Yeah.
yeah.
So and then so then basically the doc basically narcs on on Lawrence because he notices the wound is healing, his arm is better. He could see that the doctor notices something's up, and he actually knows. And then the next time we see him, he's just with a posse of people, and he's like, "You're a werewolf. Get in the wagon."
And this is a timeline here. This was confusing to me, Matt, because full moon lasts 3 nights, right?
Yeah.
And night 1, he tore up the gypsy camp, but then he is taken to London, it turns out, and instantly tortured, instantly dunked. So I'm like, this is all the same day? Like, that was a bit like he was skipping rocks. It's like a lot happened in this one day that he is now already being dunked in the water.
Well, it's hard to say because, so we've got 4 full moons to deal with. We've got Ben being killed. And then a month later, we've got Lawrence transforming, after being bit.
Right, but that's got to be, that's not, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a month later. Maybe that was the final night of that cycle.
No, because he, it takes him, I don't think they actually say it, but I think he's down and out for more than a week with that wound.
Okay.
She's reading to him at bedside. I think
the passage of time's a little.
I think it takes a while for him to heal up from that wound, even though he does fully heal. So much so that you can believe it's going from one full moon to the next. And the same thing with him being captured. He's in that asylum for a month, and then after that it takes him a month to walk back to Talbot Hall for the next one. Yeah, they're not really good with the. They should just have someone peeling a calendar, do
that. Did you have when he has the nightmare and he's holding his brother's head on stage? And it's all when he starts having some Emily
dreams.
Blunt side boob, all sorts of things are happening.
That's when he's being tortured. But he does also before that have even so he's being tortured and he has basically nightmares involving everyone. But when he's initially bit, he does have fever wolf dreams, which is also something that carries forward into other movies. Once you get bit, and it led to one of my favorite, with Stranger Things this year and a few other streaming properties, the subtitle of sound subtitle captioning of squelching, wet squelching or something, became a big thing. When Emily Blunt is at his bedside and it is getting a wet cloth for him or something, and it just says liquid sloshing underneath it.
My favorite band.
Yeah, well, it's my favorite live song, liquid sloshing and an old mother dies. Okay. So yeah, he's captured. He's instantly awfully tortured in ice water and then with electroshock therapy and all these terrible things. And it's interesting in this narrative, seeing in this third act with the reveal of Sir John as the villain and the torturing of Lawrence at the hands of this doctor in the asylum, the separation of him as a hero. You know what I mean? Even in the Gypsy Camp Massacre, he saves a boy. He's much more heroic, an action hero. And even when he gets bit, it's because he's running after to save another kid and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And basically we're faced at the end of this movie, you want him to transform and kill everyone in this medical auditorium. You know what I mean? You want the evil doctor to die. You want him to get revenge. Again,
this is the problem with making
it felt very rudimentary action movie,
yeah. And this is the problem that Universal kept running into by trying to make these blockbuster horror movies at a level that usually don't work. And again, The Mummy worked because it was an Indiana Jones type thing where it's centered around this adventurer hero, but The Mummy got to be The Mummy in those movies. And versus the Tom Cruise Mummy movie, which, spoilers, by the end of that movie, it's he's like, I guess, a superhero mummy who was supposed to have
That's
new
the thing.
adventures.
They wanted a team of anti-heroes out of these villains.
Yeah.
Or out of these misfit outcasts. That's the
Mhm.
thing. It's like the whole thing of horror is like portraying the other, right? And the
Right.
put upon and the victimized and so forth. And you can't just turn them into like action heroes. By the way, Sony's running into this problem now too with like their hit or miss like Sonyverse villain movies. It's just
Right.
like some stories aren't meant to just transform into an action hero. And also the original Mummy worked because Stephen Sommers makes fun movies. It's actually also was
Well,
a
you
funny
mean the
movie.
1999 mummy movie?
No, that's what I meant. Like that's the Stephen Sommer one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
um but
I
yeah.
just always, I'm always, when people are like the original Mummy and they mention the Brendan Fraser one, I'm like, well, it's not the original.
Yeah. I
Couple.
meant the original Mummy of the two you mentioned is what I was,
Right.
not the Boris Karloff one. Okay, so yeah, so then we get to this moment where we're like, yeah, you want him to transform, kill everyone that's like has him tied up, and escape and go back and kill his dad, and you're kind of like, okay, we're not really giving a thought to like what his fate is. Honestly, I was actually surprised, Eric. I don't know if you were, that he died at the end of this movie.
Oh, I was for sure. Yeah.
The way it was set up, I thought
Yeah.
that like, oh, he killed his dad and he's cured, maybe like he killed the
Yeah,
head werewolf,
and
like the head vampire or something like that.
either I could see it being a Hugo Weaving like I'll find you one day, or I'm going to let you go because I knew you fought for the greater good, sort of
Which
thing.
would still be weird because he killed so many people.
Exactly, because he like massacred a lot
But
of
I
people.
was the way that this movie was sort of Hollywooding itself out. I was like, I could see him surviving this.
Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't. I guess to the quote unquote, I don't know. To the movie's credit, perhaps, but that they stuck that with the tragic ending, but it's still, it's still weird.
yeah.
Is
The second transformation when he's with the doctor is funny because two
because the
things stood out.
doctor doesn't hear
Because the doctor is so oblivious for so long as we're getting all these sound effects and everyone's like basically like look behind you.
It reminded me of what referees have to do when someone gets up on the apron and the referee has to like spend a full minute telling that person to get down off the apron while the villain is cheating behind them, and everyone in the audience is standing and saying, "Look behind you, what he's doing," and he won't listen to. He literally ignores hundreds of people telling him to turn around.
Right. Well, it also reminded me because I just rewatched Planes, Streets, and Automobiles. The you're going the wrong way.
How does he know where we're going?
Yeah, it's like that. This dumb doctor will not look behind him. The other thing, though, is that I didn't realize Rick Baker worked on this movie, and because we skip an on-screen transformation the first time, I did think, is it another case, because every movie is in the shadow of American Werewolf who tries to do a transformation, that they're not going to show the full transformation? But no, A, Rick Baker worked on this movie, and two, the second time is when we'll see it on screen. Like, this is the moment where we get the transformation. They just don't do it the first time, which is how it's usually done.
All right. Then basically there's the wolf.
Oh, and I just want to skip back for 1 second to say it
Sure.
amused me because it was like, why was this added in? That Anthony Hopkins in his big, yeah, I killed your mother, I'm a werewolf, and it's glorious, and you should be glorious too, if not kill yourself speech. He also throws out that I used to be a bare knuckle fighter, which I guess is to establish so he can fight at the end. But why? He's a werewolf. He doesn't need to have a backstory.
No, well, we're supposed to believe that an actor is an action. Like, there's no.
Right.
It's like, well, he does Shakespeare now, but he used to be a commando. Like, no, there's none of that. So yeah, we get basically after the London escape and killings, and with Abilene chasing him to the streets of London while he runs on the rooftops. That he goes to the antique shop that Gwen apparently runs in London. I don't know if she'd left. Seems like she had a pretty good life with the antique shop in the big city, as far as like having to like resign her life and like move to this miserable Witcher cursed monster town. And but then Abilene tracks him down there and goes to shoot. Thinks he's behind a mirror, shoots it, and it's a devil statue. I was so hoping it was a Hey Boy that like he made up, but that's just because
I get that reference. But
I was like,
if you've watched our recent recommendations, guys, you'll get that reference too.
okay, so then he walks all the way home. She does some research on
Well, also
lycanthropy,
they have their kiss in the rain before they're interrupted by Abilene.
and we're supposed to believe that they love each other after barely
Yeah.
knowing each other. She looks up lycanthropy and she goes to like Gypsypedia and looks up some lore. And then he finally arrives at Talbot Hall and there's a big fight. And
this fight, by the way, there's something that was because this movie has obviously it's a big budget movie and there's some cool effects, but there's also some shoddy ones. Especially, it had that thing. It happened a couple times, especially during this final fight, of people when they're throwing or leaping, they don't feel like weighty enough. They feel too light. So it's like, there's like when there's like
but that was a big problem. That was a big problem
physics.
With a lot of CG.
But by 2010, it wasn't as notable. So this movie, it kind of stuck out.
I remember the worst of it for me, as far as like a movie that I was excited for, and yet this was one of the a bad part of it. A movie that had several bad parts, but like Daredevil, like when they turned into when Daredevil and Bullseye just turned it into CGI characters at the end, and they felt like they had no weight. Okay, so there's the big fight. First he tries to actually shoot him, but he took the removed the powder from the shells years ago, he said, and Sir John winds up going into the fire and then getting decapitated. But at that point, Aberline and Gwen come in, and Aberline gets bitten, and he chases Gwen back to the waterfall, which was the refuge that
which is also funny because she runs to get there, but then she runs away right away. So
I don't know what's happening. And then she winds up shooting him, and he turns
and again like the sort of building upon stuff we talked about in American Werewolf. They mention I think he says, I think it has to be a loved one. It's not quite what happens. Instead, it's like he does pause when he sees her, but then he leaps to kill her, and those cops kill him to stop him. Here, it's actually like he pauses when he sees her, gets distracted, but then he is going to kill her, and she kills him.
Yeah.
So it kind of just gives that next step.
He turns human and says, thank you.
Yeah.
And then
Gwen, I'm cool. It's good.
Aberline looks at the moon and it's like, oh, gulp.
The adventure is just beginning for me.
Looks like I'm the Ripper. And so, that was the Wolfman, which
again, I don't know if you got the sort of whatever final line about Emily Blunt.
Oh God, when she's like, which is the beast and which is the man? And
no sin in killing a beast, but when where does one begin and one end? But there is sin in killing a man, and where does one begin on the other end?
That's a hack bit. Yes, I did get that. Unfortunately, that was rated as well as unrated.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just sort of a big budget bloated misfire, of which Hollywood has many examples.
It does have many, but I do think it really stands out that that Universal would have this 3 notable times of trying this in the next few years and never succeeding, and then finally being like, let's not try to spend $150 million on one of these things. Just make it a small, cool little horror movie. Much more effective and better and works more naturally. And so I was glad to see this finally, just as a curiosity, because so many good people worked on it. But there's a reason, most of the time that these things don't get talked about a lot. And it's not like, because what happens with a lot of these bombs is because plenty of great movies have bombed. And, you'll start to hear people be like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And I've never heard people talk about this movie. And so I was like, it's not hateable, but it doesn't really come together.
Yeah, it's just kind of like exactly what you would expect. It's kind of what you expected it to be for its budget. You know what I mean? And its desire to be a blockbuster and start up a whole thing. It's just so much of it just gets smoothed out and uninteresting. And Benicio del Toro possibly miscast, obviously, and it wouldn't be the first time. He's kind of one of those actors, like you said, who needs a very specific character role.
Yep. It is funny, and of course this comes up all the time because as the MCU grows and grows, it becomes inevitable. But here it is funny since the MCU is so early that right after this you would have Hugo Weaving and Anthony Hopkins make their MCU debuts the next year, and Benicio del Toro a couple years after them. And Emily Blunt never has, even though people have fan cast her as the Invisible Woman alongside her husband. But mostly people. It's also strange that reading that Danny Elfman, they were going to throw out his score, and they hired Paul Hasslinger from Tangerine Dream to write a new score, but they didn't like it, and they just used Elfman's already completed score.
Well, it's funny because what they said they didn't like about it was the electronic elements, which is like, well, then why do you hire the guy from Tangerine Dream?
right.
Like, it seems weird.
Yeah. And then just a reminder, I know we mentioned this when we did the first Wolfman, it's like, just because Frankenstein's based on a novel, and the character Victor Frankenstein and the monster come from that novel, and Dracula the same with Dracula. But the Wolfman, like Lawrence Talbot, was created by Universal, so it's like they didn't create werewolves as a concept, but it's a much more like homegrown concept. So I get the idea that of course they want to revisit it, but it should have been a much smaller. Yeah, this was not the way to do it, and would take them a while to learn that lesson, a dark universe lesson.
Well, we're back to werewolves suck again. I'm afraid that's how we're gonna wind up this whole thing as we attempted to delve into the werewolf cinema, and
it was
for
a
better
fun
or
ride.
worse.
I really like seeing how much it kind of self-referential. That was the interesting thing about watching all these movies.
Yeah, and then also the ways that the Venn diagram crosses over into vampire movies, as far as like transformation, how one becomes a werewolf, the telltale signs of it. Like even in this movie, when he starts suspecting he might hurt Gwen, because he like smells her and her skin and her pulse and her neck, and I'm like, that was a very vampire-y moment.
Very vampire, yeah.
Like, and so they are kind of cousins in a sense, and there's a reason too why. Fandoms like Twilight or the Underworld movies or something like that often play, or the Sookie Stackhouse novels and the True Blood TV show, like put them in the same universe always, and often have them, usually feuding with each other, but
often a love triangle involving
them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because True Blood had that too, obviously,
and Vampire Diaries had werewolves too. Yeah.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But did Teen Wolf have vampires?
Ooh, I don't think so.
I don't think so, right?
But they're about to expand that universe with that new TV movie and new Wolfpack Sarah Michelle Gellar series. So
I'm always interested because Anne Rice didn't have werewolves, right?
Don't think so.
Because another Anne Rice series is about to start based on her witch books.
Yeah,
because she has witch stuff. It's all the sort of the same universe. So she's got vampires and witches. To our knowledge, no werewolves.
All right. If we're wrong, let us know.
All right. Next week we will do Last of the Mohicans, and I have no thematic segue for that from this movie. It is another, I guess you could just say, sweeping epic, starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Madeline Stowe.
Set in the past.
It is set in the past. That's true, but it's in America. All right. Until then, everything is possible, but nothing is real. And Shakma.
How Shakma.
Oh, you little how.
I know.